In recent years, with the increasing number of mass shootings and increasing media coverage of gun-related crimes, many people are speculating about guns and whether or not they should be allowed to be owned privately. While everyone can agree that these shootings are horrible, my claim is that banning ownership of firearms will fail to decrease the amount of murders and crimes via firearms. My three main reasons as to why this is true are that many gun-related crimes are already committed with illegal or illegally obtained weapons. Crimes are already, and that previous gun bans have proven to fail, and that a gun ban could prevent people from protecting themselves, which could cause a raise in murders. Back to the first claim that many gun-related crimes are committed with illegally obtained weapons or weapons that are already not permitted by law. So people already breaking the law would not stop for a new law that bans them altogether. In a study in Pittsburgh, researchers of Pittsburgh's Graduate School of Public Health partnered with Pittsburgh's Bureau of Police to trace the origins of all 893 firearms that police recovered in crime scenes in the year 2008. And it turned out that 79% of those guns were stolen or illegally obtained, while only 18% were legally owned. The second claim, banning private ownership of firearms in certain places has failed to decrease crime rates of firearms in those areas. In 1976, Washington, D.C. implemented a law banning citizens from owning firearms. And according to an article in the Washington Post, annual homicides rose from 188 in 1976 when the law was implemented to 364 in 1988, and then increased even further to 454 by 1993. This law was later struck down by the Supreme Court, and homicides have steadily declined since then to only 88 murders in 2012. Another example of this the bans not working is Britain. In 1998, they implemented a ban on firearms altogether, and since then, Britain's firearm homicide rate has increased drastically. From 1988, when it was implemented, to 2008, the gun crime spiked by 89%. Thirdly, in support of the statement that the bans have failed to decrease the crime rate, is that the Crime Research Prevention Center determined that since 1950, nearly 99% of public mass shootings have occurred in gun-free zones. My final supporting claim as to why banning guns will not decrease gun crimes is that a ban on firearms would prevent people who use firearms properly from protecting themselves and protecting others. Potential murderers may be deterred from murdering by a fear of an opponent carrying a firearm. And also murderers who are in action can be stopped by someone carrying a firearm. According to law in the University of Chicago, Bill Landis, between 1977 and 1999, the right to carry laws reduced both frequency and severity of public mass shootings, and to the extent which mass shootings still occurred, they took place in areas, or in those tiny areas of states where permitted concealed handguns were not allowed. With these three reasons that I previously stated, that criminals don't follow gun laws already, previous gun bans have been proven to fail, and a ban would prevent law-abiding gun owners from protecting themselves and others, it can be concluded that a ban of private ownership of weapons would fail to decrease gun-related crimes and murders. Thank you.
Okay, the proposition's identified. It has multiple component parts to it, so you need to simplify a couple of the claims and kind of condense them so that it's a singular element to the argument. There's a good preview of what the supporting structure is going to be, which makes it a little bit easier to follow. I think everybody understands the controversy that's going on here, so there's not a lot of dispute that this is in fact going to be argumentative. The signpost on the first point was pretty clear. You did a good job signposting throughout the speech as you got to each of those points. It was easy to follow. There are some assumptions that are not very clearly explained. You make a reference to what the different laws are in Great Britain, for instance, and they'd had a long-term ban. The ban was changed in some way, and you mentioned a statistical increase in the number of crimes that were committed with guns in that time. I think we need a little bit more background information on that. Also, you make a reference to gun-free zones. You never tell people what that is and how it fits into your argument. I do think it's connected to something that you've got on that third point also, so it's important to get that into the argument. That was, I think, a little problematic. There's some good examples that you present. The DC example, you've got statistical information about that and some factual data about the number of murders. I thought that was fine. You do have a study that talks about where the guns came from on that first point. You only have the one piece of information on that first point. I think it could probably be expanded a little bit. The second point, you've got the two examples, DC and Great Britain, to illustrate those particular points. And again, I thought the evidence there was pretty good. I just think it needs a little bit more context and that you could explain that a little more. I got the impression that your speech sounds a little bit like my review. It's in a hurry to get through this so that we can get on to the next thing instead of kind of elaborating on what the argument is and giving us a chance to fully kind of digest it. There's a lot of reading in the presentation. Like I mentioned, it feels a little bit like you're rushing at the end. I do think that you had a very good summary of what your argument was, though. Thank you.